Just for your own reference, for those of you who weren't able to make it to the annual general meeting or who aren't familiar with Transparency International, you could say that we are to corruption what Amnesty International are to the abuse of human rights. We're an international campaign group. The Irish chapter of Transparency International has been running now for 5 years. I'm its sole member of staff. I answer to a board of directors and a membership, hence our annual general meeting tonight. But we thought it a good time to host a public meeting on an issue that goes to the heart of government, goes to the heart of credibility of government, as well as to business, and that is trust. And events over the past 6 months to 12 months have illustrated the importance of trust in business and in government as well as politics. And a couple of statistics are quite startling. Edelman, the public relations company, last year published its trust barometer, which found that up to 70% of respondents, people surveyed by Edelman, wanted to see more regulation of business. Now, for the business community, that might not be good news, but it does reflect a dearth of trust and credibility in the private sector. And it's not surprising given what we've read and heard over the past year, what has gone on in the Irish Financial Services Centre and elsewhere, that there is such a dearth of trust. What is even more startling is that 1 in 4 politicians, 1 in 4 Oireachtas members, believe that corruption is an issue in the Oireachtas itself. And this was a result, or findings of a result, this was one finding of a survey conducted by the University of Delaware a few weeks ago. So we'll be asking our panellists here tonight, and we're joined by some of Ireland's leading commentators and key influencers, what needs to be done to restore trust, both in politics, government and business. And we'll divide the evening over two. We will host 2 panel discussions, and these will be moderated by Karen Coleman, an award-winning journalist, a former BBC war correspondent, and host of News Talk 106's The Wide Angle. So with that, I will hand it over to Karen to introduce the panellists. Thanks again, and thank you, Karen, for joining us.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, thanks to TI for inviting me to chair this debate. I think it's coming at a very interesting time considering the state of the country right now and all the challenges we face. And I mean, it's interesting, the theme we're going to talk about now up until about 8 o'clock, and then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss the second major challenge. But the first one is looking at the role of politicians and government in rebuilding trust in politics and government. And mind you, I should start off by asking if actually they're capable of rebuilding trust, perhaps to begin with, rather than looking at their role. All mobile phones off, by the way, please.
Sorry,
So it's okay. So anyway, the way we're going to do it is I'm just going to ask each one of our panellists for their opening views about the topic. And then really, I think Transparency International is very keen to involve all of you. So whether you want to make comments and direct your questions to any one of the panellists. So really, we want to try and get as lively a discussion going over the next 40 minutes or so until we take a break and then come back in with the next topic. So let me introduce our panellists. From my left here, Justine McCarthy. She's, of course, a very well-known award-winning journalist in this country, now a columnist for the Sunday Times. She's been a long outspoken critic of the relationship between government and business in Ireland, and she's also worked as a professional journalist in this country for a number of titles. I'm sure you know her work well, including the Sunday Tribune, the Irish Independent and Village magazine. Senator Dan Boyle will be very well known to all of you. He's the deputy leader of the Seanad. He's also party chair of the Green Party, and he's been the Green Party's spokesperson on finance, and he spent a lot of time recently discussing NAMA, the National Asset Management Agency. And next to Dan, Susan O'Keefe is also an excellent investigative journalist. You may remember her investigation into the Irish beef industry in 1992 led to the establishment of the Beef Tribunal into allegations of corruption. And of course, more recently, Susan has run as a candidate for the Labour Party in the European parliamentary elections. And finally, Dr. Kobus de Schwart is the Managing Director of Transparency International. He's based in Berlin. He heads TI's global and supports a network of some 100 chapters of TI worldwide. And before that, he was chair of the ANC in Cape Town and led the Chronic Poverty Research Centre in South Africa. So let's just go straight to it. As I said, the topic is the role of politicians and government in rebuilding trust in politics and government. Justine McCarthy, what's the role? Can it be done? Can they achieve it?
I don't think so. No, I don't think we can trust politicians to do the job for us at this stage. Just this week again, we heard yet more evidence of the unwillingness of politicians to be truthful and to be accountable, with the announcement that the accountant who was appointed to chair the committee to revise the way politicians pay their expenses, that he has resigned in frustration because he can't get any cooperation from them. And this is the Oireachtas Commission, which is chaired by the Ceann Comhairle, who is the man who had to get a limousine to go from Terminal 1 to Terminal 3 at Heathrow Airport, and doesn't think that we deserve him a public comment from him. So I think that politicians treat us constantly with disdain and contempt, and I, for one, am fed up of waiting for them to do something about it. And I think really we must be the most patient, compliant race on earth. If this was France, we would be out on the street long ago and our problems would be solved at this stage.
When you say politicians, are you principally talking about those in the government?
Well, power corrupts, we know that, and we have a government now that's been there for 12 years. So yes, I class this government, sorry Dan, I don't think that the government as a body is capable of changing the system. I think they, as a group, live in an ivory tower. They don't even recognise the extraordinary privileges that they have, and they don't accept that those privileges come with responsibilities. I admire people for going into politics. I know Susan as a former colleague. I admire her for going into politics. I have nothing bad to say about Dan. He's a fellow Cork person. So, you could possibly do anything wrong.
Present company accepted. But what you're saying really is that they can't be trusted. They've proved that over and over again. They ignore us. So yes, these are the people we're trusting to lead us through unbelievable challenges over the next, not a mind, 12 months, couple of months. Lisbon Treaty, establishment of NAMA, a very severe budget coming down the road.
On a good day, they might tell us what we want them to say to us. That's if they're bothered. That's on a good day. I don't believe what they say to us anymore. There's too much spinning. There's too much concentration on image. And yet, it's partly the fault of the media. And I would hate to be a politician. Because we are subjecting them to more and more scrutiny and we are being harder on them. But I think that's necessary because they will not make the adjustments that are needed. And I think we as a people are going to have to get much tougher on them. We tend just to be too soft, really. I remember when I was a child, my mother coming home from a visit to Boston and saying, "You'll never believe what the women in America are doing. They're boycotting steak in the supermarkets because the price of steak has gone up." And in my family, we thought this was extraordinarily subversive. You know,
yeah.
It was just a gesture. We don't get together and we let them away with so much.
So, in other words, you're saying they really don't have, for the initial question, a role in rebuilding trust in politics and government?